Our goal is to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion. From a nominal deficit of $2 trillion to try to cut the deficit in half to $1 trillion, or looked at it in total federal spending to drop the federal spending from $7 trillion to $6 trillion. We want to reduce the spending by eliminating waste and fraud, reduce the spending by 15%, which seems really quite achievable. The government is not efficient, and there's a lot of waste and fraud. So we feel confident that a 15% reduction can be done without affecting any of the critical government services.
I'm going to talk to all the guys.
If not making it better.
I'm going to talk to all the guys here about the specifics, but for you, what's the most astonishing thing you've found out in this process?
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more.
After listening to Elon and his DOGE crew, one thing becomes painfully obvious. There's no logical reason to oppose eliminating fraud, waste, and mismanagement in government, unless you're benefiting from it. The resistance doesn't come from the economy of production or common sense. It comes from the economy of redistribution.
And what we not gonna do is stand around while they pull this bullshit that they trying to pull right now.
Go ahead.
This is why I'm not gonna be able to preach, because I probably won't be able to stop cussing.
Every time you hear DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, you just remember, it is the Department of Government Evil.
A system sustained by emotion, not reason, by entitlement, not effort. When reform threatens that system, the elites don't argue, they incite. They rally mobs through name-calling and fear, not facts. They scream racist, fascist, threat to democracy, because they can't defend a system built on public theft. The modern Democratic Party isn't defending the poor, they're defending their own survival. Redistribution is their lifeblood, public deception their business model, and government expansion their revenue stream. Cut that off and their empire collapses. We live under two clashing economies. One is real, driven by work, value, and voluntary trade. The other is parasitic, driven by confiscation, dependency, and political favoritism. Can they coexist? Barely. A parasitic economy can survive only if small and leashed. But when it grows larger than the host, it kills the very engine that sustains it. No system survives without production. But when redistribution outweighs creation, when takers outvote makers, collapse is inevitable.
I like to say very bluntly, our mission is to redistribute wealth. A lot of people bristle at that phrase. That is, in fact, the phrase we need to use.
Now, by taking from the rich, you reduce their incentives to produce, and they will produce a little bit less. By giving to the poor, you provide them with an alternative source of income other than working, and they too will produce a little bit less. This is just math, people. All redistribution leads to a reduction in output, and the greater the redistribution in income, the greater will be the reduction in output.
Biden and his allies rebranded redistribution as growth. They flooded government with debt-funded jobs that produce nothing, conflating bureaucratic bloat with economic progress. That's not ignorance, it's sabotage. A job with no value output is not neutral, it's negative. It drains resources, slows real growth, and buries future generations in debt. And the people running this scam know exactly what they're doing. From this deception grew political arbitrage, the most corrosive mutation of all. Not capitalism, not entrepreneurship, just legalized looting. Fake industries are propped up not by demand, but by subsidies, crony contracts, and policy manipulation. They don't build, they siphon. And failure is part of the business model, because failure guarantees more funding. This isn't mismanagement, it's by design. A system where connections replace competence and taxpayer dollars bankroll the illusion of prosperity. What makes this all work? Compliance. Millions have been conditioned to believe debt-funded handouts are a right. They vote for decline, thinking they're securing comfort. But when the crash comes, it won't be the takers who pay. It'll be the producers who are forced to fund their own demise. To rebuild, we must gut the grift. That means ending political arbitrage and restoring a trade-based economy where value is earned, not redistributed. Less bureaucracy, more builders. Less dependence, more production. Real prosperity demands it. History doesn't spare frauds. No nation survives when effort is penalized and parasitism is subsidized.
We started at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all the fraud was. And there's a lot of great people there that showed us really a lot of waste. And so that came up with a big list of stuff they're working on. You've heard some of that already. But this is what jumped out at us. In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers. Just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border. They do what's called a release from your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, notice to appear, which to appear to judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people. You can apply for a work document. You file a 765. It's the work form. You get this form called the 766. That's the authorization. And then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
They weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people.
This is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1.3 million of them already on Medicaid, as an example. We've gone through, on every benefit program we went through, we found groups from this particular group of people, this 5.5 million people, in those benefit programs.
The statues of these false leaders will fall, not by protest, but under the weight of their failed system. The only question left is whether we'll reclaim the system before the collapse or after.
In the last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Which George Soros am I talking to now? The amoral George Soros or the moral George Soros?
It's one person. It's one person who at one time engages in amoral activities and at the rest of the time tries to be moral. I think that I've been blamed for everything. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.